Turn around for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this.
That doesn't change anything. You still are going to be arrested.
But what?
Okay.
You don't have any proof on me.
No, ma'am, I do.
What happens when the system flips the victim into the villain? When a rap queen calls for help and ends up in handcuffs. This is more than just weed, more than just fame. This is a fight for justice. GloRilla's life just turned upside down, and the truth behind her arrest will leave you speechless. You think you know the story. Think again.
I always say she marked me, but I ain't never feel no special than none of the other kids who y'all was treated the same. It's just growing up, my mama had me near her, like I was like right hand.
Turn around for me, the officer commanded, his voice steady but with an edge that left no room for argument. GloRilla paused, caught between frustration and disbelief. She could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on her. Finally, with a sigh that mixed resignation and defiance, she said, "All right, fine, I'll take this. I'll take the charge." But her concession didn't soften the officer's resolve. He didn't flinch, didn't waver. "That doesn't change anything," he said plainly, already reaching to cuff her. "You're still under arrest." The air thickened with tension as GloRilla's mind raced. "For what?" she asked, voice laced with disbelief and anger. "You don't have any proof on me." Her words challenged the very premise of her detention, but the officer's reply was crisp, cold and unyielding. "Oh, but I do, ma'am. I absolutely do." Word spread fast after that moment. The news outlets, social media platforms, and fan communities alike buzzed with the shocking revelation. GloRilla, Memphis's reigning queen of rap, had just been hit with a major sentence following a police raid that uncovered a significant stash of marijuana in her home. It wasn't just the quantity that raised eyebrows. It was the timing, the circumstances, and the questions it sparked about what else might be simmering beneath the surface. For years, GloRilla had been a figure of both admiration and scrutiny, a young woman who clawed her way out of the hardships of South Memphis, turning her struggles into sharp, unapologetic lyrics that resonated across the nation. Her rise had been meteoric, from singing gospel in her church choir to commanding stages with hits like F&F, but this arrest threatened to unravel everything she had worked for. As fans grappled with the news, many expressed shock and confusion. How could someone so successful, so seemingly in control, suddenly find herself on the wrong side of the law? Yet, beneath the surface of headlines and tweets, a more complicated story was unfolding. Those close to her whispered about the pressures she'd faced: constant surveillance, legal challenges, and an industry that wasn't always kind to women, especially Black women, breaking barriers. The discovery of the marijuana wasn't a simple matter of possession. It felt like a calculated move. Some argued, by law enforcement, eager to clamp down on a rising star who refused to be tamed. The timing was suspect. GloRilla was out of town performing at a major event when her home was searched. Many questioned whether this was justice or a targeted attempt to derail her momentum. The arrest also reignited debates about how the criminal justice system treats successful Black artists. Despite shifting public opinions on marijuana, with many states legalizing or decriminalizing it, the enforcement of such laws remains inconsistent, often disproportionately affecting people of color. GloRilla's case became a lightning rod for those frustrated by systemic inequities and the double standards that persist in policing and prosecution. Behind closed doors, the impact was deeply personal. GloRilla's family was shaken. Her home had been invaded, her privacy violated, and now she faced the prospect of a legal battle that could drag on for months, if not years. The emotional toll was immense. Friends described her as a fighter, someone who had weathered storms before. But even the strongest can feel the strain when everything they've built is suddenly on the line. Lawyers moved quickly, preparing defenses and strategizing to counter what they saw as an overreach by authorities. Public relations teams crafted careful messages to maintain her image, but the damage was done. Social media was awash with speculations, unsupportive, many critical, and a loud minority eager to see her fall. The narrative was out of her hands now, shaped by headlines and sound bites that only scratched the surface of the truth. Yet amidst the chaos, GloRilla remained resolute. She took to her social channels to speak directly to her fans, sharing raw and unfiltered thoughts about the arrest and the ongoing fight. Her words struck a chord, revealing the human behind the headlines, someone grappling with disappointment, frustration, and hope. She reminded everyone that this wasn't just about a stash of weed, it was about fairness, respect, and the right to rise without being pulled down by systems. designed to keep her in check. The arrest also opened up broader conversations within the music industry and beyond. Fellow artists and activists rallied around her, highlighting the persistent challenges faced by Black creatives navigating fame, legal scrutiny, and societal expectations. Discussions about reform, equality, and support for artists gained renewed urgency, with GloRilla's situation serving as a stark example of what was at stake. Meanwhile, the investigation continued. Questions remained unanswered about the circumstances leading up to the raid and what law enforcement prioritized in their search. Critics questioned why more effort wasn't made to catch the real criminals who had broken into her home months earlier, instead focusing on a minor offense that threatened to overshadow the trauma of the burglary. For GloRilla, the journey ahead was uncertain. Court dates loomed, reputations hung in the balance, and the pressures of maintaining a public persona while fighting private battles intensified. But if there was one thing everyone agreed on, it was this: GloRilla was more than a headline. She was a symbol of resilience, a voice for those often unheard, and a reminder that behind every news story, there's a human being fighting to tell their truth. As the legal drama unfolded, fans watched closely not just for updates on the case, but to see how the woman they admired would rise again. Would this be the end of her story, or the beginning of a new chapter defined by strength, perseverance, and unwavering spirit? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear: GloRilla's name would not be forgotten, and her impact on music and culture would endure long after the courtroom doors closed.
I used to sing Amazing Grace. I used to sing this song called Encourage Yourself.
You were really a singer.
Yeah, I used to be singing in church. Like, I had a good voice. And then, once I had got in high school, we weren't going to church like that. When I got in high school, then when I got in high school, I had started smoking weed.
Forget the singing.
"Turn around for me," the officer said, his voice calm but commanding, leaving no room for argument. GloRilla let out a heavy sigh, a mix of defiance and resignation in her tone. "All right, fine, I'll take this. I'll take the charge." But the badge standing before her didn't waver. "That doesn't change anything," he replied coldly, his eyes locked on hers. "You're still under arrest." The moment hung heavy in the air, her voice sharpened with frustration and disbelief. "For what? You don't even have proof on me." The officer, unfazed, met her challenge head-on. "Oh, but I do, ma'am. I absolutely do." Within hours, the news cycle exploded. Headlines blared that GloRilla had been hit with a harsh sentence after law enforcement discovered a sizable stash of marijuana on her property. The revelation sent shockwaves through her fanbase and the wider music community, igniting debates, rumors, and speculation. Questions flooded social media. Was this the start of a bigger crackdown? Had someone set her up? Or was this just another chapter in a complicated saga no one fully understood? The weight of this arrest became even heavier when you consider GloRilla's past legal troubles. Adding this latest felony charge on top of her previous DUI and reckless driving citations paints a troubling picture. One where Memphis's leading female rapper might never step into a recording booth again. The dazzling heights of her career, built on raw talent and relentless hustle, seemed to be crashing headfirst into dark, ugly lows. The pivotal moment came on July 22, 2025, when GloRilla was officially booked in Forsyth County, Georgia, facing felony charges for possession of marijuana and a controlled substance. But here's the thing that often gets lost in the noise. This wasn't some reckless kid caught selling drugs on a street corner or fleeing the cops in a high-speed chase. The reality was far more complex and far more unsettling. While GloRilla was commanding the stage at the WNBA All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, captivating thousands with her energy and presence, her home back in Georgia was under siege. A violent home invasion had taken place, ripping through the safety of her family and her sanctuary. The stark contrast between those two moments couldn't be more jarring. On one hand, she was shining in the spotlight, and on the other, her loved ones were facing terror behind locked doors. And then came the shocker, when police arrived to investigate the break-in. Instead of focusing on finding the perpetrators who forced their way into her home, terrorized her family, and stole valuables, they turned their attention elsewhere. The focus shifted to something else entirely, something that would soon upend GloRilla's life in ways no one expected. Rather than aggressively pursuing the criminals who violated her home, the authorities zeroed in on a personal stash of marijuana they found during the search. Suddenly, the victim was being treated like the suspect. The narrative flipped upside down. Instead of protecting GloRilla and her family, the system appeared to be punishing her. prioritizing minor drug possession over a violent crime. It was a move that baffled and angered supporters, critics, and activists alike. This wasn't just about law enforcement enforcing drug laws. It was about the bigger picture, how the justice system often targets black artists who rise too fast and too far, despite the changing legal landscape around marijuana. With many states embracing legalization and decriminalization, enforcement remains inconsistent and disproportionately harsh on people like GloRilla. Her case became a symbol of that systemic imbalance, sparking conversations about race, fame, and the true meaning of justice. Behind the headlines and hashtags, the emotional toll was profound. GloRilla's family was traumatized not only by the invasion itself but by the way the authorities seemed to dismiss their fear and suffering. Her home, once a place of refuge, was now associated with vulnerability and violation. Friends and allies watched as the young artist fought to hold her career and reputation together while navigating an unpredictable legal storm. Legal experts quickly stepped in, with her defense team highlighting the troubling nature of the investigation. They pointed out that while GloRilla's family did the right thing by calling the police, the response was woefully misdirected. Instead of cracking down on the actual criminals who broke into her house, the police used the opportunity to launch a deep, aggressive search for marijuana, even deploying K-9 units and drones to comb through her property. The result? A felony charge that threatened to overshadow her artistry and hard-earned success. This series of events only added fuel to the fire on social media, where supporters rallied to defend GloRilla and condemn what they saw as an injustice. Many questioned how someone who was out building her legacy and performing on major stages could be treated as the criminal in her own home. The story became more than just a legal battle. It was a moment that exposed ongoing issues about how the system treats black women in the spotlight. Despite the challenges, GloRilla refused to let this define her. She spoke out openly about her experience, sharing her side of the story with honesty and grit. Her words resonated deeply, reminding everyone that behind the fame and music is a human being fighting to be heard, respected, and protected. The story of her arrest isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a call to examine how justice is truly served, especially when it comes to those who dare to rise.
As soon as I pulled up and we was on the yacht, I instantly hooked up to the aux, played all my unreleased music, and he was just, we was just on the yacht vibing to all my unreleased music, I guess. So he was like, it just felt right, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, he believed in me. Like,
instead of chasing down the criminals who broke into her home, the police went snooping around and, what did they find? A stash of weed in her bedroom. That alone was enough for them to slap the cuffs on GloRilla. Wild, right? She had called the cops because her house was violated, her family shaken, and her belongings stolen, but somehow, the story flipped, and she ended up the one arrested. She had to cough up a $22,260 bond just because of some personal cannabis chilling in her own place while she was out of town. Make it make sense. But GloRilla didn't stay silent. She fired back hard on Twitter, where her post exploded with over 3.6 million views. She called out the system and the industry drama behind the scenes. Told you and your manager every day that we was in LA with Sweetie, that labels are going to try to sign you because of FNF. So, watch out. I also told you to let me know when labels reach out so we can be on the same page. But you still went and signed my song without telling me. In another post, she explained, my house got home invaded Saturday while I was in Indianapolis performing for the WNBA All-Star Game. And instead of focusing on finding the suspects, they focus on some cannabis facts. But to really understand how things got this messy, we need to rewind. This isn't your typical rags to riches tale, it's survival, struggle, and pure South Memphis grit. Imagine growing up with 9 siblings, 6 brothers, and 4 sisters all crammed into one small house in South Memphis. If you know that area, you know it's one of the toughest places in the South. No luxuries, barely enough food, sleeping on air mattresses squished together like a king-size bed, and just making it through the week felt like a win. That's real-life grinding. But GloRilla's real name, Glorio, was never just another face in that crowded house. Her mother saw something special in her from day one, giving her the middle name, Hallelujah. While her brothers had names like Carmichael and her sisters Inikolai, Gloria carried a divine spark right in her name. Here's what will blow your mind. Especially if you only know her for turning up with street anthems and wild bars. Before, GloRilla was blasting FNF through speakers worldwide. She was deeply rooted in church. Real deep. Every single Sunday, no excuses. Front row devotion. She sang gospel like Amazing Grace and encouraged yourself with real, powerful vocals. She wasn't just built for any mic, she was blessed with pipes that could have taken her straight down the gospel road, but, as it often goes, the streets have a sneaky way of calling out two young souls, and by the time high school hit, that holy path started to fade. Church attendance dropped off, and GloRilla began mixing with the wrong crowd. Weeds crept in, and the choir was left behind. The mic stayed, but it wasn't for hymns anymore. That pivot was the birth of a rap star. Fast forward to early 2022. GloRilla teamed up with producer Hit Kid, and together they made magic. They cooked up F&F, a track that wasn't just hot, it was lightning in a bottle. TikTok owned it, the Billboard Hot 100 bowed down, and Grammy nominations followed. But beyond catchy hooks and beats, F&F became a cultural moment. It gave voice to every woman tired of being played, tired of babysitting broke men with no ambition. It was a bold declaration. I don't need a man to pay my bills, or, tell me my worth, I already know, I'm that girl. GloRilla once shared how she met Hit Kid on a yacht. They were just chatting, and the rest became history. But like all success stories, drama followed. Right after the track blew up, Hit Kid accused GloRilla and CMG of moving behind his back, trying to snatch ownership without keeping him in the loop. That's the kind of industry drama that surfaces the second a hit racks up millions. Everyone wants their cut, and fast. Major labels started circling like vultures, flying her out, booking VIP meetings, and whispering promises of fame and fortune. But GloRilla wasn't just book smart, she had street sense. She wasn't fooled by the flash. She took her time, moved smart, and made sure she peeped the whole game before signing any deals.
Me on who you are. You sing, you
No, because you still gonna pick on me. You don't matter who I am.
pick on you. I'm not picking on you. You're
'Cause I'm
driving and I can smell alcohol off your breath.
But I'm not drunk. I can tell you.
She spent 2 whole weeks sifting through offers from the biggest names in the industry. But when she finally sat down with Yo Gotti, everything shifted. Glo was cautious at first. Gotti was a Memphis heavyweight with serious street cred, and signing with someone from her own city could get complicated. What sealed the deal wasn't just Gotti's money or reputation, though it was his vision. While other labels saw her as just a one-hit wonder, riding the wave of F&F, Gotti saw the artist beneath the hype. On his yacht, she played him, heard unreleased tracks, and he listened not just politely, but with real focus and belief. He knew she had range and potential, a catalog that could shake the industry. Gotti wasn't interested in writing a single hit. He wanted to build a legacy. He believed Memphis still ruled the game. And Glo was next in line to wear the crown. But with success comes a big target, especially when you're young, loud, and winning. Right after signing with CMG and riding the F&F high, the system came knocking hard. In April 2024, Glo was pulled over in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and charged with a DUI. Celebrities get DUI arrests all the time, but this one felt different. Body cam footage released later showed a chilling shine before she even spoke. The energy was off, like the officers had her guilty before any evidence surfaced. The whole encounter felt rigged, as if her rising fame made her a target. Despite going through sobriety tests and facing shady accusations, GloRilla stood firm, maintaining her innocence. The footage showed no wild behavior, just a woman, confused, frustrated, slowly realizing the system was stacked against her. That 2024 arrest should have been a wake-up call, not just for Glo but for anyone watching how young, successful black artists get treated. Instead of fairness, law enforcement seemed just getting started. Meanwhile, Glo's career was booming. Her collaboration with Cardi B on Tomorrow 2 turned heads and solidified her as one of the realest voices in the game. But the spotlight also meant pressure. Personal heartbreak hit hard, leaving her unable to eat for weeks, and the constant attention weighed heavily on her mental health. Her vulnerability made her relatable but also a target. Legal troubles piled on. On July 20, 2025, while Glo was lighting up the stage at the WNBA All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, her Georgia home became a target. 3 suspects broke in, but one of her armed family members fought back, firing shots that sent them running. They escaped with jewelry, leaving the family traumatized and shaken. But instead of hunting down the criminals who invaded her home, the police zeroed in on a stash of marijuana found in her bedroom closet. Think about that. A successful black woman calls the cops after a violent break-in, only to have the system arrest her for possession, not pursue the real perpetrators. The irony stings even more because marijuana is legal or decriminalized in many places. Still, no arrests have been made for the break-in itself. The real criminals walk free while Glo faces felony charges that could destroy everything she's built. Social media erupted with outrage, with people across the country calling out the injustice, but Glo didn't retreat. She fought back with raw, heartfelt posts that resonated with millions. She explained how her house was invaded while she performed, and instead of focusing on the burglars, the police targeted her cannabis. Her words struck a chord because they told a bigger story, one about survival, grit, and the harsh realities young black artists face. From growing up in a crowded South Memphis house with 9 siblings to singing gospel in church every Sunday, Glorious roots run deep. The streets eventually called her to rap, and by 2022, she and producer Hitkid created F&F, a cultural explosion that gave voice to women demanding respect and independence. But the music industry's vultures and snakes soon surfaced. Hitkid accused her and her label of shady moves behind his back, while major labels circled with tempting deals. Yet Glo stayed sharp, moving carefully and wisely. She faced backlash, from offensive lyric controversies to gospel community skepticism, over her collaborations, but she owned her mistakes, grew, and stayed true to her story. Through every trial, legal battles, industry drama, and personal pain, Glo remained steadfast, performing, speaking out, and inspiring millions. Her legal team, led by Drew Findling, has called out the system's broken priorities, highlighting how law enforcement focuses on punishing the victim instead of catching criminals. It's a harsh reminder of the systemic barriers that still trap young black artists, keeping them in check no matter how far they rise. Facing felony charges for marijuana and controlled substances, Glo's future hangs in the balance. If convicted, she risks prison time, travel restrictions, and limitations on her career. But beyond the legal fight, she's already won in ways that count, showing resilience, leadership, and a voice that refuses to be silenced. Glo's story is far from over, and her impact on hip-hop, culture, and the fight for justice is already etched in stone.